the universe is a vast place, the Doctor seems to bump into the same familiar faces with alarming regularity, whether it's Captain Jack Harkness or the latest incarnation of the Master. However, there are other characters who go about their daily lives for decades without ever bumping into the Doctor. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie with Who Culture, here with the 10 longest gaps between Doctor Who character appearances. Number 10. Jo Grant, 13,639 days. Third Doctor companion Jo Grant was instantly recognisable to Doctor Who fans in The Power of the Doctor when actress Katie Manning's laugh could be heard during Graham's speech at the companion meeting. But of course, this wasn't the first Doctor Who return that Manning had made since she departed the role in 1973's The Green Death. Jo's departure is one of the most melancholic exits in all of Doctor Who, and it was only right that she made a return to the show, the long way round. After Matt Smith's first series, Russell T Davies wrote what many believed would be his last script for the Doctor in the Sarah Jane Adventures two-parter Death of the Doctor, which featured the long-awaited return of Jo. Part 1 aired on the 25th of October 2010, just over 37 years since Jo got engaged to Professor Clifford Jones in the final episode of The Green Death on the 23rd of June 1973. Death of the Doctor also updated fans on the whereabouts of Ace, who missed out on this list by a few thousand days, and Ian, but more on him later. Number 9. The MOVELLANS, 13,721 days. In one of those crazy rolls of the dice that only an exiting Doctor Who showrunner would attempt, the MOVELLANS made a brief cameo at the start of Peter Capaldi and Stephen Moffat's final series. Making one appearance in Terry Nation's unloved final Dalek story, Destiny of the Daleks, the logical androids were pitched as the Daleks' greatest enemies. Not due to their strength, but due to the stalemate that was caused by the immovable forces of logic and hatred. They never appeared again, and probably never would have if it weren't for a mischievous aside from Mark Gatiss. Reading the script for the pilot, Gatiss observed that the Dr. Bill and Nardole should arrive during a Dalek skirmish with the MOVELLANS, just for the sheer hell of it. It was a fun reference that gave fans a laugh without alienating the casual viewer. Destiny of the Daleks concluded on the 22nd of September 1979, leaving an almost 38-year gap before their cameo appearance in the pilot on the 15th of April 2017. Number 8. The Sisterhood of KARN, 13,810 days. Stephen Moffat was the king of the deep-cut Doctor Who reference, and so it was that the Sisterhood of KARN became recurring characters between 2013 and 2015. Originally appearing in 1976's The Brain of Morbius, the Sisterhood were the keepers of the sacred flame, which created the much sought-after elixir of life. The Fourth Doctor found time during his busy schedule battling the resurrected Time Lord villain Morbius to reignite the flagging sacred flame. 37 years later, our time, the Eighth Doctor was in serious need of the sacred flame's healing properties in 2013's The Night of the Doctor, and it was the elixir of life that triggered his eventual regeneration into the War Doctor. Sisterhood member Ohila would later arrive on Gallifrey in the Series 9 finale Hellbent to chastise the 12th Doctor for his reckless behaviour. To this day, this is the last time the Sisterhood has been seen in a televised story. Number 7. The ZYGONS, 13,945 days. The ZYGONS were David Tennant's favourite villain growing up, so it was a surprise that they never appeared during his tenure. Brilliantly designed, they were one of Doctor Who's most iconic one-shot monsters until they finally returned in 2013. The inclusion of the ZYGONS in the 50th anniversary special, The Day of the Doctor, may have been an added sweetener to get Tennant back on board, but recent developments suggest that the actor will take any opportunity to slip back into the role. Between their first appearance in 1975 and their second appearance over 38 years later, the ZYGONS featured in comics, audio dramas, and novels, and were even mentioned in 2010's The Pandorica Opens, but were never actually seen. Their ability to shapeshift would have made them ideal foes for Aliens of London/World War III, but for whatever reason we got the Slitheen instead. Thankfully, there was a much shorter gap between the ZYGON's second appearance and their third, which came in 2015's The Zygon Invasion/The Zygon Inversion. They're still out there among us, so hopefully we won't have to wait until Doctor Who's 90th anniversary in 2053 to see them again. Number 6. Tegan, 14,101 days. I mean, who can blame Tegan for staying away? Her aunt got shrunk by the Master, her grandfather got kidnapped, and her cousin was almost killed by the renegade Time Lord Omega. Worse still, her travelling companion Adric crashed a freighter into prehistoric Earth and she watched countless humans and Silurians die. It feels like over 38 years is a good amount of time to deal with that trauma. That's how long it was between Tegan's ghostly apparition in the caves of Androzani's regeneration scene and her return in Jodie Whittaker's final story, The Power of the Doctor. Joining Tegan was Ace, who was last seen in Doctor Who 29 years ago in Dimensions in Time. Yes, it counts. So she doesn't qualify for this list. Even if you go with Ace's last regular appearance in 1989, Survival, she still doesn't quite make the cut. Tegan actress Janet Fielding, like many of the show stars do, maintained a connection with Doctor Who in her time away. Interestingly, she served as Paul McGann's agent when he was the 8th Doctor in the 1996 TV movie. Number 5. The Ice Warriors, 14,232 days. The Ice Warriors are one of Doctor Who's most fascinating creatures because they're not always villains. Introduced as such in the 1967 serial of the same name, they later became allies of the 3rd Doctor before falling back on bad habits, with their last appearance in the classic series coming in 1974's The Monster of Peladon. This wasn't the original intention, however, and both the 6th and 7th Doctors were supposed to face the Ice Warriors, until Doctor Who's hiatus and cancellation sadly intervened. The Martian Warriors didn't even appear in the Rogues Gallery of Foes menacing the Doctors and the cast of EastEnders in Dimensions in Time. Criminal! Therefore, it took almost 40 years for the Ice Warriors to make their return to televised Doctor Who in 2013's Cold War. Writer Mark Gatiss had always wanted to bring the creatures back, but was met with resistance by a skeptical Stephen Moffat. Eventually though, Gatiss got his wish, and would even bring them back again 4 years later in 2017's Empress of Mars. Number 4. The MACRA, 14,624 days. In a display of how confident Russell T Davies's Doctor Who was in its 3rd series, it brought back a classic monster that nobody could have predicted. Mostly because the monsters in question were from a 1967 Patrick Troughton serial that has been lost from the archives. Thankfully, the MACRA aren't that hard to realise. They're literally just giant crabs. Still, it was an incredibly ballsy move by RTD to just throw them in the climax of Gridlock. For hardcore fans, it was a proper drop-your-bacon sandwich moment, and for the less informed Doctor Who viewers, they were giant menacing crabs, the best of both worlds. The final episode of the MACRA Terror aired on the 1st of April 1967, making the gap between appearances just over 40 years by the time Gridlock aired on the 14th of April 2007. Could the gap between their 2nd and 3rd appearances be even longer, or much shorter? Well, with RTD back at the helm, all bets are off. Number 3. Alpha Centauri, 15,751 days. In another cheeky Hail Mary by Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat, and once again in their final Doctor Who series, the duo brought back Alpha Centauri, a niche Doctor Who character who hadn't been seen or heard from in decades. The memorably designed character was once described by director Lenny Mayne as a giant green dick. Alpha Centauri appeared as such in the closing moments of Empress of Mars and was again voiced by Isan Churchman, reprising the role after 43 years. Alpha Centauri wasn't a cheap bit of fan service either. It actually made sense to the context and themes of Gatiss's story. Airing as Britain made plans to leave the European Union, it portrays the great Martian Empire's decision to join the wider galactic community. The first representative they meet is Alpha Centauri, last seen in 1974's The Monster of Peladon. Aside from the political parallels, getting a giant green dick back on primetime BBC One was exactly the sort of mischievous move you'd expect from Moffat and Gatiss. Number 2. The Great Intelligence, 16,363 days. In a neat bit of foreshadowing for the return of almost all of the Web of Fear back to the archives, the big bad of Doctor Who's 50th anniversary year was revealed to be the Great Intelligence, Sans Yeti. The Great Intelligence made 2 memorable appearances during the Patrick Troughton era as a malevolent, disembodied force able to influence those in its grasp. The best-loved Great Intelligence story, The Web of Fear, was top of fan lists of lost stories they wanted to see return, and they would eventually get their wish in 2013. Before that exciting day though, the Great Great Intelligence made its first appearance in 44 years, voiced by Sir Ian McKellen in the 2012 Christmas special The Snowmen. Hilariously, the 11th Doctor has forgotten all about the Great Intelligence, given how long it's been since they crossed paths. This forgetfulness even leads to the Doctor accidentally giving the Intelligence the idea to take over the London Underground in The Web of Fear. It was another of Stephen Moffat's deep-cut Doctor Who references that hinted at the exciting 50th anniversary year to come. Number 1. Ian Chesterton, 20,939 days. Ian Chesterton almost returned to Doctor Who for its 20th anniversary season in 1983, but actor William Russell was unavailable. Aside from a name check in the Sarah Jane Adventures and The Day of the Doctor, the former Coal Hill teacher and original Doctor Who companion hasn't returned to the show since he and his colleague Barbara Wright arrived in London 1965 at the end of The Chase. After a hell of a long wait, 57 years, Ian returned to Doctor Who in The Power of the Doctor, as the elder statesman of Graham's companion support group. Hilariously, he's flummoxed by the idea of the grumpy old man he met in 1963 now being a young woman. It was the perfect nod to Doctor Who's enduring legacy, and the importance of both William Russell and Jacqueline Hill to the show. Without Ian and Barbara, we wouldn't have the Doctor as we've known them in the 57 years since they left the TARDIS. Including Ian's cameo in a Doctor Who episode that celebrated 100 years of the BBC was doubly brilliant, given that at 97 years of age, William Russell has been around for almost the same amount of time. And that concludes our list. If there's some characters that haven't made a return that you would love to see back, then do let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell so you never miss a Who Culture video ever again. Also, head over to Twitter and follow us there, and Instagram as well. And I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. Don't forget to look for Sean Ferrick as well, and Dan the Meeks too. I've been Ellie with Who Culture, and in the words of River Song herself, goodbye, sweeties.